Comes from Monday's sessions about input to the Decadal survey and what our next steps are going to be. So can we display that Google Doc? The LPI, Louise is going to put up a place at the LPI for all white paper ideas and authors across all of planetary science, which is going to be super helpful. So you'll be able to see things from other ag groups and other parts of the community that you may be interested in, or that we may be able to combine forces on for lunar science and other solar system science. But specifically for LEAG, we're going to put up this document that's a working document that's going to have voluntarily, you don't have to do this, but if you're interested in trying to recruit other co-authors or signatories, or if you're a member of the community who wants to sign on to one, this is sort of a matchmaking service. It's totally voluntary. LEAG isn't going to follow up on any of these. It's going to be up to you to follow up on. So if you're an interested co-author, you should contact the first author. If you're a first author and you see people signed up, it's up to you to go sign up for them. So that's what this says. And then we'll fill in, at the bottom here, we'll fill in the other white paper or spreadsheets from the other ag groups if you're interested in going and looking at those. And I'll send out this link to this Google Doc on the Lunar listserv. We don't have a LEAG listserv. Some of you have asked me to get on the LEAG listserv. We do not have a LEAG listserv. We have the Lunar L that Clive runs out of Notre Dame, which has been in service for years and a great service to the community. If you're not on the LEAG, on the Lunar L, that's what you need to get on. We have a LEAG mailing list that no one ever uses.
We have, if you go to the LEAG website and register, LPI actually apparently has some sort of zombie mailing daemon system that we can use to send messages to everyone. We never use it, but we can. So just.
And that goes to people who've registered, right?
That goes to people who've registered for this meeting.
Right. Yeah. So to get this out to the broader community, well, maybe we'll do it to both. Maybe you'll get 2 spam emails. Okay, can we go to the next tab for white papers? Great, so here's what I put up for the white papers that we collected from the groups who did the exercise on Monday. Now, recognizing that not everyone from the lunar community was present for that, we know this list is incomplete. Also, some of you went ahead and volunteered, some of your fellow scientists, for writing white papers. I put their names in if you put a name in, but it's really going to be up to you to make sure they don't have a heart attack when they see their name on the list. So if you were leading or docking for one of those groups, please go ahead and get in touch with those authors so that they can either affirm that they want to lead those white papers or punt it to someone else. But this is just straight up raw data that I collected off of the documents that you gave me. So it's up to you to sort of finish this. What it is the tentative title or scope or topic. It doesn't have to be the title of the white paper, but please put a description in there, what it is you're trying to convey with that white paper. Put in the originator's name, institution, and email. That doesn't obligate you to be the first author, but it obligates you to be the point of contact in this exercise. And then people who are interested can go ahead and sign up under those orange lines, and they go all the way out, you know, to the right. So if you're interested, put your name and contact information there. And like I said, originators and people who are interested, it's up to you to mutually get in touch with each other. Don't put your name under interested and then sit back and wait to be invited. It's not how this works. So I'll go ahead and send this out and you can use it. You can put your stuff on the LPI website. I'm sorry that there's going to be 2, but they serve slightly different purposes. You don't have to put them on both. You can put them on both. You don't have to put them on either. Just help for the community. Okay, can we go all the way over to RNA and tech priorities? Thanks. So these are some of the ideas that came out when we asked you for what are some ideas that we could put in for improving the RNA scope or priorities in the Decadal survey, and what tech do we need to develop. So again, as you're thinking about this process and you see things that you want on this list or that you're going to take on, there may be sort of a tech white paper. Maybe some of these could go in there. LEAG will probably have a couple papers that the LEAG XCOM authors that sum up the sense of the community. So maybe that's an appropriate place for some of these RNA ideas. doesn't preclude you from writing your own, but these are the ones that came out of those documents, just so that you see them all in one place. It was suggested that maybe there be opening up participation in survey to more than just the teams who are selected. Those teams self-select. They go in as a group of people, and some people feel left out of that community because they weren't on a team, or they weren't on a team that was selected. And there are a lot of other good ideas out there. So maybe broadening the reach of some of those institutes. We would have also said Astrobiology Institute, but that is a whole different beast now. But maybe being able to bring some things in to the survey umbrella on the basis of individual participation. Geologic mapping came up a couple times, once in terms of volatiles and resources, and once in terms of improved geology. So we have a lot more improved data that we can use to make geologic maps, both to look for resources, but also to do things like look at actual just geologic processes and units, and maybe do some improved crater counting. We have a lot of angst in the community about where lunar samples belong. You'll see a draft finding about those. What programs do they belong in? How are they being funded? Are enough sample proposals being funded? Is that sustaining the community? Are we really preparing for future lunar sample returns? Are we keeping that community vibrant? So we'll have to think about how to do that. Increased funding for exploratory and high-risk research. There's a sense from especially people who have been on review panels that not enough high-risk, high-reward. That doesn't enter into the calculation enough, that you really have to have your pilot study funded and maybe even do all the research before you get the funding. So appealing to the more high-risk, high-reward denominators. There's a whole bunch of other things here that you can look at. I won't belabor it, but there's some really good ideas for research kind of stuff. Technologies that came out, continuing to invest in and fly small sats, power thermal materials for landers, surviving the night, communication infrastructure for FarSight in particular, or for situational awareness, navigating MPSRs, and overnight, and characterizing hazards. So for those of you writing papers on these things, go ahead and pull these ideas or contribute new ones. Okay, can we go back to the list of mission priorities? So we didn't know what was going to come out of these groups. I was hoping that it would not be 10 different missions. We are going to have to go in as LEAG, which does include you, with a sense of the community of the missions that we want to advocate for, the big missions, new frontiers and flagship class missions. We can't, it would not serve us well to not advocate for those as a community. And so we do need to come to consensus and prioritization on what those are going to be. We did not ask you to prioritize. We were hoping that you'd come to consensus, and I think you did. So it's very pleasing to see that we didn't end up with 10 disparate mission concepts, that we coalesced around these, and multiple groups coalesced around some common ones. These are not prioritized. I'm warning you, we will have to prioritize. That's going to be saved for another day. But this is what came out of the groups. Seismic, geophysical network. Several groups said, yeah, let's do a geophysical network. It's still a very high priority. We haven't done it. We need to do it. Let's keep it on the list. Polar Volatiles rover. We talked about this at the last LEAG. This was on the list for the Decadal last time. They did do a study. It didn't rise to the top of getting onto the New Frontiers or flagship lists. The importance of that mission has just grown in the interim decade. We know a lot more now about what we want to do, why we want to do it, and where we want to go. So I think the importance of that came out in multiple groups. We need to, I think, it sounds like we should ask for that in the Decadal survey process, where they are allowed to consider new missions. It was on the CAPS list. I know at least one group put in a PCMS proposal that was not selected. I know they're going to write a white paper, but it seems like that's something that we could ask for a real Kate level mission study in the Decadal and consider it in the Decadal. This is something that I want to open up for discussion after I get through this list, but geochronology of big basins. Very gratified that everyone said this is important. I think everyone still thinks this is a really good thing to do. I think several people said sample return from South Bowl Lake and Basin. We want to reaffirm that priority that's already in our decadal surveys and been in fact in the last 2 decadal surveys. But I just want to throw this out there. Not everyone said sample return. And it's not just me. I have, full disclosure, I have a PCMS on this to open this up a little more broadly, but other people did say it too, which is, I want the sense of the community. Is this something that we want to reaffirm that it's South Bowl Aitken Basin sample return, or that we should broaden, we should reaffirm this, the science goals of that mission and that intent to get at big basin chronology, and then open that more to the community for other creative approaches to solve that problem. So that's something that's going to come up when you heard Kurt Niebuhr talk about new frontiers and possibly reassessing some of the things in the new frontiers call. Maybe that's something that we, LEAG, could advocate for if that's the sense of the community. And it will be, again, the sense of the community probably in the next decadal as well to get that done, because we haven't made significant progress on it. Long duration rover, several groups advocated for a long duration rover. That's another PCMS study that's underway. I will just caution that a long duration rover sounds like an awesome mission because that's something that we do on Mars all the time, but long duration rover is not a mission. It's not a science goal. This needs to have a science goal that's associated with it. This is an enabling architecture, absolutely, for a lot of different things, and some of the things got listed there. Geology, surface processes, geochronology, volatiles, all these things would be enabled by having this architecture. But to go into the decadal survey, we're gonna have to neck that down to a science goal or a set of science goals that we want to achieve on a mission enabled by a long duration science rover. So that's something that we will need to continue to work on as a community to advocate. There's a couple other ideas down here, sample return from everywhere, which I want, which I think everyone wants. I'm going to exercise the chair's prerogative and exercise a little caution that I don't think this is something that's realistic for us to advocate for in the decadal survey, to have multiple new frontiers or flagship sample returns. So that is my sense. Your sense as the community could be very different. So we would need a strong rationale for doing that. I just put it here as a point of departure. CLIPS may be able to do this, but again, we are not relying on specific architectures. We are not telling them how to do the architectures. I think it's a fine thing to advocate for multiple sample returns because there are multiple things that we want to do. So whether that goes into advocating for specific mission architectures or programs, or whether that is just a thing that LEAG wants to make the point for, I haven't come down on one side or the other. So these are just what we got out of Monday. That conversation is going to continue. We'll send it out on the listserv. We're going to have 2 virtual meetings between now and when white papers are due to the decadal. We'll have one in January, which will have updates from current missions and instruments in development. So you'll hear from the PIs of those, what instruments, missions, things like that, and what they're going to do to try to address some of our science priorities before the next decadal, or during the next decadal. And then we'll have a second one, I'm not really sure when, maybe early April, maybe late March, early April. We can't let it interfere with the new Tempe workshop. But that will be an update on decadal survey papers, white papers, sense of the community, prioritization, all those kinds of things. So if you're continue to be interested in this and you want to help guide those priorities, please look out for that virtual meeting and attend that. It will only be maybe 2 or 3 hours of your time, but it's really important that we reflect the community's priorities. I think we have maybe a couple minutes for discussion. Jen, is that true?
Barb, can you just remind us again when the white papers are due to the decadal?
We think white papers will be due in May based on the schedules that were shown by Colleen and Lori, but we will not know the schedule until probably January. It won't be earlier than May. Thanks.
Brad Jalfwash, you. Barb, just to maybe start the discussion, thinking back to your question about big basin chronology and sample return from South Polacan Basin reminded me, going back to discussions for the previous 2 decadal surveys, one of the assumptions that at least the proponents of the South Polacan Basin sample return had was that for a New Frontiers mission, the goals should be not just planet specific. In other words, we had to have goals that, or a mission, a science concept had to have goals that go beyond just what's the history of the moon. And so big basin chronology obviously is important for entire solar system. And so that's part of it, but there were other parts to South Polacan Basin sample return, not just big basin chronology. There's also deep-seated material. How do big impact basins affect the evolution of a planet and so forth? So I just as a point of starting the discussion, when we think about new frontiers, we have to think about solar system scale problems.
Yeah, and that's an excellent point, Brad. I think the previous decadals really tried to broaden the appeal or the diversity of science questions that could be answered in that mission to bring it up to New Frontiers quality science. I will just add my personal opinion that when we added New Frontiers 4 missions, we didn't necessarily see that philosophy carried through for the rest of the solar system, where some of the other missions or other scopes were not necessarily as broad as we were thinking very carefully about our own. So is that really required? The specificity that is in the current decadal about all the things you could do, is that required? Do we really feel like we need to do that?
Yeah, I don't know that it's required. It was just, as I say, the proponents of that particular concept had that sort of idea going in, that in order to get this up to that level, and then being on the other side, being part of the committee that actually was putting together the decadal survey. This is a long time ago, I'm going to date myself. That's one of the criteria that we were looking at within that committee. So it's going to be the makeup of the committee that kind of decides that, I guess. I don't think it's written down anywhere that it has to be that way.
Yeah, it's a great point, because how are we, what scope do we need to effectively advocate for this science?
Right.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, and I would just remind, there's another question that comes up, and that is, can a particular concept be accomplished for whatever the cost cap is that's determined for New Frontiers? If it can be done in Discovery, why is it in New Frontiers and so forth?
So I want to echo what you said about, this should be about the science, and we should make sure that all of these concepts that we put forward are, what we call them is the science goal that we're trying to achieve, or, encasing those science goals. So for example, the Polar Volatiles rover, that is not the science goal. Right. So all of these we need to really refine and make a good case that gives us the flexibility to come up with, novel implementations to accomplish the science.
Perfect.
And I'm going to pile on also and say that we still don't know how the decadal is going to be organized, whether it's going to be by target or major question. So I think it behooves us to make sure that all of these investigations that we look at are framed in the broader context of the larger questions that span the solar system. And things like, how did the solar system form? How have things moved around? How have volatiles moved around? All that kind of stuff. And yeah, eventually we'll get down to, I'm going to study that at a specific case in the moon, but we really need to make sure that everything is framed in a broader context.
I couldn't say it better.
Just to pile onto that a little bit, you did mention that people don't have to put their papers on both the LEAG website and the LPI, but I strongly encourage people to post them on the LPI website, because that is where people from other disciplines are going to see them and join in and hopefully make them more interdisciplinary. I think that's going to be a key for this decade.
Yep.
If you go back to your RNA and tech priorities for a second.
Yeah, can we go back to the RNA tab?
Just a note on the high risk, high reward one. I don't know where you're going with that exactly, but I urge you to be very specific about what you mean by high risk there. Because it is something we're looking at, and we are defining high risk right now as intellectual risk, as in paradigm changing ideas that people might look at and go, that's completely crazy. but I'm not sure if that's what you mean here or not. So be very specific and maybe use some examples of what you mean by high risk when you are taking that forward in whichever way.
Good advice. Thanks. Anyone else? Okay, if not, check out the link, make it your own, and join us for the virtual meetings. Thanks. Louise is going to make a quick interlude.